What if I told you that everything from the shape of your face to your ability to make friends, your athletic potential, and even your risk for certain diseases is literally written into your body at the moment of conception? And what if scientists are now getting dangerously close to rewriting that code? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating and frankly unsettling topics in modern science: how genetics actually shapes who we are and what happens when humans start playing God with DNA. This isn't just abstract biology. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a physicist from the 1940s accurately predicted the structure of DNA decades before it was discovered, why your parents' influence on you might be far less than you think, and why one secret genetic experiment in 2018 rocked the entire world. Let's go. Let's start with something you can see right now: faces. For centuries, people have been obsessed with reading character from physical appearance. It's called physiognomy. And while it sounds like pseudoscience, and trust me, a lot of it is, modern research has uncovered something genuinely fascinating. Back in the 1880s, a scientist named Francis Galton had an interesting idea. He took photographs of different groups of people, criminals, lawyers, athletes, and physically superimposed them on top of each other to create composite average portraits. His goal? To see if you could visually identify what makes a criminal look like a criminal. Here's where it gets interesting. Most of his conclusions were completely wrong and deeply influenced by his own prejudices, but the technique itself, it accidentally stumbled onto something real. Fast forward to 2014. Researchers analyzed the facial structures of 241 UFC fighters and found something statistically significant. Fighters with deeper set faces, that is, faces with more prominent bone structure and deeper spacing between features, tended to be more formidable competitors. This wasn't about looking tough. It was about actual fighting performance correlating with specific facial geometry. Then there's the hockey study. In 2009, researchers looked at 90 professional hockey players and discovered a correlation between facial width and penalty minutes for violent behavior. Broader faces correlated with more aggressive gameplay. So what's actually happening here? This isn't magic. It's not about reading someone's soul from their cheekbones. What researchers discovered is that certain facial features can be associated with testosterone levels, bone density, and muscle composition factors that genuinely do influence athletic capability and aggression. With modern machine learning and facial recognition technology, scientists have even found they can predict other traits with surprising accuracy, including political orientation with 72% accuracy. Now imagine what that data could be used for. The point: your face isn't lying. It's just not lying in the way we thought it was. Here's something almost nobody knows. The structure of DNA wasn't discovered by biologists. It was predicted by a physicist. Meet Erwin Schrödinger. You probably know him from that famous thought experiment with the cat. The one where a cat is simultaneously alive and dead until you open the box, and everyone uses it as a metaphor on the internet. Schrödinger actually proposed that paradox to make fun of quantum mechanics interpretations, not to become the most memed scientist of all time. But here's the thing about Schrödinger. Nobel Prize-winning physicist, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, and get this, he decided to write a book about biology. In 1944, Schrödinger published What is Life? It was a popular science book where this physicist decided to explain biological processes through the lens of physics, and in doing so, he made the most important theoretical prediction of the 20th century. Schrödinger hypothesized that somewhere in living organisms there exists a periodic crystal, a molecule that repeats, but not in a strictly regular pattern. This molecule, he suggested, could encode an incredible amount of genetic information using a relatively small number of atoms. He called it the hereditary material. Now, at the time, nobody knew what DNA was. There wasn't enough experimental data to confirm what this mystery molecule was or how it worked. But Schrödinger had reasoned it through mathematically and physically. What he didn't know was that DNA is literally a double helix spiral, a structure that does repeat, but with variations at each step. That variation is the actual code. And with just four chemical bases, adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, arranged in different sequences, you can encode the instructions for every living thing on Earth. 10 years later, in 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick discovered the actual structure of DNA and they won the Nobel Prize for it. Both of them independently cited Schrödinger's book as their primary inspiration. They literally said a theoretical physicist from 1944 predicted this, and here's the experimental proof. This is what separates real science from guessing. Schrödinger used logic and mathematical thinking to predict something he couldn't see. Then biology proved him right. The implications were staggering. Scientists realized that this molecule, this twisted ladder of chemicals, contains the complete instructions for building and operating every biological organism. It's like a tape with instructions. Each gene codes for a protein. Proteins are the building blocks of every cell in your body. Your height, the color of your eyes, your hair, muscle density, metabolic rate, it's all encoded here. And here's what most people don't understand. DNA is incredibly stable. You can boil it, freeze it, bury it in the ground for hundreds of thousands of years, and it remains relatively intact. Scientists have successfully decoded DNA that's roughly 2 million years old. This molecule is a time capsule of information, passed from parent to child, from generation to generation for billions of years. Now we get to something that will genuinely challenge the way you think about parenting, identity, and free will. There's an American psychologist and geneticist named Robert Plomin who has spent 30 years, literally his entire professional career, studying nature versus nurture. He's written multiple books on this, but there's one in particular that blew my mind, Blueprint: How DNA Makes Us Who We Are. Here's the central argument. We've been wrong about parenting. For decades, parenting culture operated on a simple model. Children are blank slates. They're lumps of clay that parents can shape into whatever they want through discipline, education, encouragement, and environment. Mess up your parenting and you mess up your child. This created an industry of parenting books, therapy focused on blaming parents, and an enormous amount of parental guilt. Plomin's research suggests this model is fundamentally flawed. Through twin studies, comparing identical twins raised together, identical twins raised apart, and fraternal twins, researchers have been able to isolate the effect of genetics versus environment, and the findings are counterintuitive. Genetics accounts for roughly 50% of individual differences in intelligence, personality, behavior, and psychological outcomes. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but that's the general range across multiple traits. This means your parents' genetics gave you half of your blueprint. But here's the thing, your parents didn't control the other half, at least not in the way we thought they did. Environment matters, but not in the way parenting manuals suggest. Yes, your parents' love is important. Your relationship with them shapes you. But the everyday parenting decisions that cause parents to lose sleep at night? Whether you should have done more music lessons, whether they should have pushed you harder in school, whether your childhood trauma is the reason. You're not a millionaire. These don't predict your future with nearly the certainty we've been told they do. Here's what the research actually shows. Beyond the basics of safety and connection, environmental factors are surprisingly unstable over time. Children bounce back from divorce. They recover from moving. They get over losing childhood friends. Some take longer than others, but eventually most children return to their genetic trajectory. This doesn't mean environment is irrelevant, but it means we've been massively overstating parental responsibility. Now, here's the part that will resonate with some of you and upset others. Instead of trying to mold your child into a version of yourself, trying to make them the mathematician you wish you were, the athlete you never became, the leader you aspire to be, maybe the better approach is this: pay attention to what they're naturally good at. Help them discover what they genuinely enjoy doing. Because here's a psychological fact. People overwhelmingly love doing what they're good at. It's a positive feedback loop. If you're naturally decent at math, you do more math, you get better at math, you enjoy it more. If you're naturally talented at sports, you spend more time playing, you improve, and it becomes a source of joy. But if you're pushing a child against their natural inclinations, you're fighting their genetics. And when you do that, you run the risk of damaging your relationship with them while achieving minimal results. This is Plomin's genuinely liberating message. You don't have to be perfect parents. Your children are 50% copies of you, and you need to come to terms with the fact that the other 50%, maybe more, is not like you, and that's okay. This should free parents from guilt and anxiety. It's not an excuse to be neglectful. You still need to provide structure, safety, and opportunities, but it's permission to stop trying to engineer your child's personality and future. Now, here's where the physics comes back in. Schrödinger himself wrestled with something that would have fascinated Plomin: determinism and free will. Schrödinger wrote that all physical events in the living body are, if not strictly predetermined, then statistically predetermined. In other words, your body operates according to the laws of nature. And yet, you experience yourself as directing your own movements and making real choices. Schrödinger's conclusion? I, in the broadest sense of the word, direct the movement of atoms within myself according to the laws of nature. He essentially said, I am, in the most fundamental sense, a god in miniature directing matter according to my will. This is the paradox of genetics. You are a product of 4 billion years of evolutionary history. Your genes written before you were born, shaped by ancestors you'll never know, and yet you experience choice. You experience agency, and both of those things are real. Your genetics aren't destiny. They're terrain. They're the playing field you were born onto. But how you play, that's still you. On November 26, 2018, something happened that proved we had entered completely uncharted ethical territory. A video appeared on YouTube from an unknown channel. In it, a man in a light blue shirt announced that two twin girls had been born in Shenzhen, China, completely healthy, but they weren't ordinary. They were the first genetically modified humans in the world. The man's name was He Jiankui. He's a biophysicist, and he had used a technology called CRISPR-Cas9 to edit the genes of human embryos. What was he doing? The twins' father was HIV positive. He, Jiankui, had deleted the genes that allow HIV to enter human cells. The rationale? The children would be immune to HIV. The experiment had been conducted in secret until this YouTube announcement, not published in a scientific journal, not presented to ethics committees, just announced to the world on YouTube. And here's where it gets truly strange. Nobody even knew this had happened. The scientific community found out about the first genetically modified humans through a YouTube video. Within a week, the news had spread globally. Within a month, he had been called one of the most important people of the year. But as an anti-hero, his university disowned him. The Chinese government launched an investigation. He was convicted, sentenced to 3 years in prison, and ordered to pay a fine of approximately 500 million yuan, about $500,000. But the mystery remained. Why did he do it? And more importantly, why did he choose this particular gene to edit? Here's what doesn't add up. If you want to prevent HIV transmission from father to child, there are proven methods. HIV-positive fathers, using modern medical interventions, produce HIV-negative children in nearly 100% of cases. So the genetic modification wasn't necessary. There are hereditary diseases, ones that kill 100% of people who have them, where genetic modification would theoretically make more sense. Huntington's disease, for instance, causes neuronal death and gradual brain destruction. If you're going to edit genes, why not choose something that's actually fatal? But here's the truly unsettling part. The mutation that provides HIV immunity has another effect. According to recent research, this same genetic variant is also associated with improved cognitive function, better memory, and faster recovery from stroke. Was He Jiankui looking to create not just HIV-immune children, but smarter, healthier children? A genetic enhancement? A designer baby? Some sources suggest that He Jiankui wasn't working alone, that he was acting on behalf of the Chinese government with government funding, and was made Closetta scapegoat to shield officials from international scrutiny. These are just theories, but they're theories worth considering. What we do know: genetic modification of humans has begun, and it wasn't through official channels. It wasn't through ethics committees or international agreements. It happened secretly, was announced on YouTube, and by the time the world reacted, it was already done. Jennifer Doudna, one of the inventors of CRISPR technology, was asked if we should establish a moratorium on editing human embryos. Her answer: it's already too late. The genetic changes made to those twin girls will be inherited. Their children will carry the edited genes. Their children's children will carry them. This modification will ripple through generations, a permanent alteration to the human genome. And here's the thing, nobody wants to say out loud. Even with all the ethics committees and international agreements we can create, we cannot stop this. Now, once you know it's possible, once you have the technology, once even one person has done it, you cannot put that knowledge back in the box. The question isn't whether genetic modification will happen. It's already happened. The question is, what comes next?